And welcome back to another very special Big 12 Championship edition of the 480 Experience.
Boom.
I got Trev to my left.
You like Dr. Pepper, right?
I do like Dr. Pepper.
Well, that's who's sponsoring the Big 12 Championship, baby.
Hey, they should go give us that little scholarship that they like to give out every year. Give us the 480 Experience. We could use it, man.
Dr. Pepper funded me through school.
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, Iowa State, Arizona State. We survived the treacherous trip to Tucson, man. That, what a place. We had fans throwing food at us. It was a lot of fun. Good experience. Don't know how badly I want to go back to Tucson, but
We'll be back there for basketball season, and it'll be
not willingly though.
They will be a lot more polite because it is an older age range for the basketball fans in Tucson. So they're not going to be like the rowdy, blue collar fans. It's just going to be those, what we call them, the Q-tips.
The Q-tips.
Because about 75% of the stadium is sold out season tickets by the day one.
Really?
And they're all just old senior citizens because that's all they look forward to is those U of A seasons. But screw CBB, screw the U of A.
Yeah.
49-7. We handled our business. Any sort of speculation that we had going into Saturday, you're dumb.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that we were going to let U of A ruin our chances. We had a chip on our shoulder. Yeah, there
were so many people predicting
there was
an upset.
Yes, that rivalry component. And obviously, I was a little nervous coming from the 520 Tucson native. But, at the end of the day, this team does not have any personality around having an ego. This team is that blue-collar mindset. I love that we were ready for that moment.
Yeah, team was ready.
What was your take on Kenny's signature phrase, got to stab him in the stomach, but then we got to twist the knife?
Twist the knife. That was pretty tough. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard it before, but it was tough. Always love Kenny's quotes. Just overall good game. We lost Jordan Tyson, which
was pretty cool. Like, in the
it
moment,
wasn't cool that we lost Jordan
Tyson. It's not cool
Tyson.
that we lost him, but like it was cool how we saw it because we didn't really notice it, right?
Yeah, we just
And
saw
we're
him go down.
We saw him go down, and we're like, okay. And then Strider asked me a few minutes later, he's like, hey, did Tyson get back in the game?
Never did.
And I told him, I'm like, hey, like, it's all good, Like,
Yeah,
we probably don't even need him right now.
Yeah, but then, broken collarbone. I
That's
thought there was a
heartbreaking.
chance that maybe he could come back, but then he did get the surgery, and recovery for the surgery just doesn't line up with a potential
heartbreaking,
playoff
man.
appearance. So
It's heartbreaking.
yeah, it's very heartbreaking. And
Do you feel a little bit less,
a little less sure? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to kill us. I really don't.
really?
Yeah.
Because I was at a point where, okay, ASU is plus 8,000 to win the national championship, right?
Yeah.
If Tyson's playing, I don't mind putting money on that. But Tyson out, now I'm a little scared. Because I was going to play it like the investment game where ASU championship winner, right? But then you let them progress through the playoff bracket a little bit, and then you're like treating them like a stock because you get a cash out. The more they progress through, then they just apply the math of like, okay, well, they only have this and this game left to win the championship. So mathematically, we're going to give you a quarter of the final number that we would give you as the payout. So I was like, all right, bet. Let me just treat ASU like a stock right now. But with Tyson out, I'm a little scared. Not for the Iowa State game, but for the playoff bracket.
Yeah, but you don't want to look ahead too far. I mean, Iowa State's
True.
a tough team,
Great,
right?
great
They're going to be maybe the best passing attack they've faced since Texas State. Does that sound right to you? Does that sound
Kansas?
Okay, Kansas. Yeah, I guess Kansas.
But I'll give you that, right? Like the style of the passing, right? It's completely different with, it's this Texas State quarterback where we played him and he was that air raid offense, but high turnover margin, just like a good passer. It wasn't really going to extend plays with his like athleticism, explosive athleticism. I like this as a comp. Texas State. I like the Oklahoma State as a comp as well.
On what side of the ball? Offensively?
Offensively,
Okay.
just because I see a lot of similarities where they are balanced in that air raid, but they do have good running backs. I'm actually going to bring that to light a lot in this show. I do like the running back room for Iowa State. I think it is a sneaky good room.
Yeah.
So
With Hansen,
It's-
Sama.
yeah, it's Sama.
So-
Sama's the guy.
So it's like a running back by committee type deal.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, I like that. It's gonna be difficult, but ASU's run defense is up there with the best of them. Looking at why I'm not exactly nervous here with Jordan Tyson being out is Iowa State's rushing defense, man. They
Yeah.
are no good. Okay.
Yeah. So, talk to me
yeah,
about those stats.
dude, I'm looking at the stats right
Yeah.
here. So opponents against Iowa State this year,
Mm-hmm.
they run rushing plays 55% of the time. Okay, that's
okay.
actually a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Puts them at number 100 in the country, and typically teams run plays that are working.
Yeah.
So that just means running works way more often throughout the season for every team. They are 112th on yards per rush. They give up 5.1 yards per rush.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then they give up they allow 34 rushes a game and 173.6 rushing yards per game. This sounds like
Wow.
the competition Ashton Genty has been rushing against all year. Just kidding.
Yeah. So just bringing this to light a little bit, the
Yeah.
most 3 competitive games Iowa State has played, UCF, Kansas, Texas Tech. We got RJ Harvey rushing for 196 2 touchdowns. We
Yep.
got Taj Brooks running for 122 1 touchdown. And then we have Devin Neal running for 116 2 touchdowns. This is
Yeah.
going to be a scataboo day.
It's going to be a Scatterboo day, and especially with Tyson being out. And let's talk a little bit, Trev, okay? The game is in Dallas. How do you feel?
That's why it hurts me.
How do you feel that they don't allow us to host the championship game? How does that make you feel? Do you like the neutral site? What are your thoughts on it?
I love the neutral site because it's applicable to the playoff bracket.
Okay.
It is also a huge revenue earner for, that conference camaraderie where everyone can finally come together, hold hands, regular season's over. Now let's just see our teams perform well in the bowl schedule. And I do think the Big 12 will represent when bowl schedule comes out. But I do love that component. It just adds that extra atmosphere that we haven't seen all season. I'm just upset that Jordan can't play in his hometown because he's a Dallas native.
See, I'm going to go opposite here. I hate it.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me you'd want to see an Oregon home game?
Yes.
a
yes.
Texas
yes.
home
I
game.
wanted. Well, wouldn't it be Georgia?
I think Texas has.
Is it Texas?
Yeah, Texas has.
Are they the
one
home team?
loss.
Yeah. And then Boise. Well, Boise State is playing at home. The Mountain West does it that way.
G5.
It's a G5. But here's the thing. Okay.
SMU
no,
Dallas too as well.
I
for
understand. I understand. Right. You want it to be like the bowl games. And
Tell me your pros and cons because they
Okay,
have to be
okay.
rational here.
Yes. No. But the pros of this is college football doesn't need to be corporatized,
Okay.
sterilized, right? It just makes it feel boring, right? This isn't the Super Bowl. These are kids.
Yep.
These are not professional athletes.
Mhm.
Oregon, Penn State, no one is going to watch the game.
Yeah.
No
but-
one's going to it.
but
Tickets
it's
are
because-
$30.
It's because Ohio State's out and no one wants.
Okay, no. Oregon is
And
one of
this
the
doesn't-
biggest fan bases in all of college football. Same with Penn State. But college kids, the ones who should be watching the games, we can't drop $600 to go to Dallas to watch a game. I really don't like just this corporate way of handling college football. I mean, I was down with moving conferences, right? Because that's also another step towards a more corporate league was the conference realignment, less conferences, less governing bodies over each team. But give us the championship game, man.
So-
I want to see my boys play, and it's not just because it's Arizona State. I don't understand. Does it really make them more money? I guess maybe Jerry World probably paid a lot of money for
All
that
right.
game.
You ready?
Okay, let's hear it. 'Cause
Micro
I don't get it.
perspective. Okay, micro perspective. All right, we're dealing with humans here.
Okay.
You're telling a football player
Okay.
who's a senior in high school wins his state championship in an NFL stadium will never get to play in an NFL stadium again, potentially, if they don't make it in the league.
Does that matter?
You know that matters.
Does that actually matter?
If we were on the football team and we
Okay.
knew we weren't going in the league,
Okay.
it'd be pretty cool to say that we got to play in an NFL stadium.
But would it be cooler to win the Big 12 championship with all of your actual diehard fans there?
And the aspect of having professional NFL scouts.
They were going to be at the game regardless.
They're not coming to Tempe like they're going to Jerry's World, though.
But why? Why wouldn't they? What would stop them?
It's
nothing. The answer is nothing would stop them.
So for me, I'm gonna look at the aspect of the player, right?
Okay.
Giving them that opportunity to play on some NFL turf.
I guess.
And I'm gonna give that aspect to the player development of the game, where there's gonna be people scouting, there's gonna be people projecting. It's just you bring that of like everyone is now in this one spot able to evaluate in a very professional setting, and everything is just, it's a lot more smooth that way, in my opinion, rather than having the traditional tailgate, having the traditional home atmosphere that we've already got to experience 6 times this year. We're phenomenal. And I know we're undefeated at home, so that probably would have been an added component.
It would have been really nice to play.
But to be a Power 4 team requires a conference committee to be organized preseason within each conference, and they organize these things. So if you're telling me that all these commissioners, all these coaches are in the media days are going to professionally set up and have all these organizations set up, right? Just for them not to conclude the season together? No, they're going to conclude the season together because they started it together. Now they're going to conclude it together. So the SEC committee, hanging out in Nashville, the Big 12 committee hanging out in Vegas, they're going to say, hey, we'll see you guys in December for the big game, whoever's in it. That is the aspect of it. So player evaluation and the personal player development that I like to see when you get to play in an NFL stadium.
And that stuff just doesn't matter to me.
Wow.
Like that just doesn't matter to me. I think saying
so many NFL players would probably say differently, I feel like. They're like, yeah, I didn't get to play in a state championship in high school, but got to play in a conference championship. And I put some film out there, put some tape out there, and that's the reason why I got drafted. Boom.
But the energy is not there, man.
Well, we'll see. We don't know. We don't know. Is
it going to be the same as BYU ASU? You're telling me there's not even a fraction of a chance that enough ASU fans.
It's the championship.
I get that. But there's going to be a lot of neutral fans there. There's going to be a lot of neutral fans there. I went to Kansas UNLV last year. I wasn't rooting for either of them.
That was a random bowl game.
That was the rate bowl game.
Yeah, the guaranteed rate. No, but that's what I'm saying, man. Like, you can't just normalize a championship like that. You can't just make it just some routine Saturday. You got to go all out because the committee goes all out for the preseason and they go all out for the postseason, and this is their one opportunity to network. And when we're in that position one day where we maybe have some credibility, we know a few people, we're going to enjoy that experience. I guarantee you that. And if we had press passes,
I don't think I am.
And if we had press passes to Dallas, you're telling me you wouldn't enjoy it?
I'm gonna enjoy being on the field regardless of where it is. I don't think that really matters to me personally. If I'm on the field, I'm gonna be happy.
You're gonna feel different though.
No, because
you're gonna feel different.
Also Jerry World is not that. It's a stadium that's seen better days. I would say it's an okay stadium.
I'll give you that. I would have rather had it at Allegiant. That would have been cool.
Allegiant, I guess it wouldn't make sense because it's really far from Iowa, but it makes sense for ASU, right? Closer to home. We could go to Allegiant.
Yeah,
it's a couple hour drive. We could make it happen, but I don't know. I know a lot of ASU fans are traveling.
It's about a 20-hour drive from Ames, Iowa to Allegiant Stadium.
That's crazy. It's probably, I guess Iowa. I know Iowa is going to travel well to Dallas.
Well, it's their first ever conference championship.
First time winning 10 games
first time in 80 years type thing. Like, this is a remarkable season for Iowa State. I want to give shout out to Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner.
He's been awesome this year.
Yeah, very impressive. Zoom conference the last few days. I appreciate you giving your flowers to the two teams, the two coaches. But more importantly, what I really appreciated was his introduction of Grant Rossini. I got to see Grant Rossini in Tucson. I told him congratulations on the year, because when you're a new athletic director and you're coming in from a lot of broken glass everywhere because realistically, we weren't the ideal sports program to join at that point.
No, we were
but
not.
Grant Rossini has really picked us up a lot, and he's provided that support. And I just think that I feel like we do belong in the Big 12 now. Like, even if we weren't winning or anything, like I wouldn't feel as detached from this conference. I feel like we've had that warm welcome. Just it could have been a lot worse. Last year I think they didn't warmly welcome teams like Cincinnati or BYU, and they got the bottom edge of the stick. They were terrible in conference play. I get that, but I think once they added these 4 Pac-12 schools, Brett Yormark made it a testament to make sure this was going to be an identity of family, and we've all come together, and I've really appreciated being a part of the Big 12 family this year.
Okay, well, let's move on. Let's talk about the college football ranking.
We can't. We got to talk the game.
Nope, let's talk about the ranking.
We gotta
3 lost teams ahead of Arizona State.
We got to talk
What is going on? Hey, college football committee, you're on a watch list right now.
No.
You're on my watch
committee,
list.
We don't care about you. We just got to beat Iowa State, and then we'll care. How about that, right? Because we got to beat Iowa State, and then we got to pray, because Brett Yormark also said that. I still have full faith that the committee will rank the Big 12 champion above a G5 champion. He still has faith, so it will be.
I don't think so.
We gotta have faith. We gotta have faith.
I don't have faith. What? Okay. Why should we have faith in the committee to do right by ASU?
Because I know that ASU is going to dominate against Iowa State, and that is going to be a statement game.
They're 3-point favorites.
I know, but
3-point favorites.
They've allowed 100+ rushing yards to the Big 12 runners, and you're telling me Kim Scatterbu won't do the same thing?
Yes, but their offense is awesome this year. Their offense has been awesome.
They've been playing. Who's the hardest defense they played this year?
Utah scored 31 on them.
Okay, you're saying
Utah's a good defense. Utah's the hardest defense that ASU has played too.
And remember, Utah was 4-7.
And
not competing for anything.
We scored 27 on them. They scored 31. Comparable, right? Cincinnati, they scored 34.
The best defense they played all year was Texas Tech.
You think Texas Tech was better than Utah?
At that point of the season where it was conference implications, yes, 100%. 100%. Texas Tech came into Iowa State and held them to 22 points. Isn't that ridiculous, my man? That's crazy. And you want to hear what's explosive in an offense? You ready?
Let's hear it.
Iowa State versus Kansas. Carson Hansen, 48 rushing yards on 8 carries.
Yeah, they threw for 383 yards.
Yeah, and they had a pick.
That's good.
They got a pick. They were playing from behind, and that was their big. They scored 16 points in the 4th quarter. They lost. I would easily give Rocco Beck 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception if I knew ASU was winning. Because, look, their identity is really good with, I love their receivers. Higgins and Noel is just so nice. I think Higgins is an actual, NFL archetype. Jalen Noel plays kick returner as well. So he's like that specialty speed guy. Mm-hmm. But I do like, Javen or Keith matching up against him. But Higgins is that big body receiver that we will have to answer, potentially double team. Dude, I would let Iowa State throw all over us because I know we'd have the lead. I know they're going to be playing from behind.
I don't think I would let them throw all over us, but I'm confident here that if ASU controls the time of possession with scat, I'm confident that Arizona State will win this game. Am I going to sit here and say it's a blowout?
Tyson's going to get some good runs. Sip is going to ball.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm confident that Arizona State can win this game. Not in a blowout, but handedly with scat.
This is my take. If we beat Iowa State by 2 possessions, we're the 4 seed.
Even with Boise, if they win?
Yeah, because by that point, we'd be undefeated over the course of 8-game stretch. The one game we lost before that was with a QB2, and then obviously our first Big 12 game ever, we lost it. That was a fully healthy game.
Okay, so let's say we give ourselves the mulligan for Cincinnati because our quarterback was out. I think the committee could get behind that. They've certainly given Alabama a lot of mulligans. So let's say, okay, so it's ASU, Boise State resumes. Obviously, ASU has a way better resume than Boise State, but the committee seems to be valuing losses more this year than actual like winning football games, right? Or else BYU would probably be in contention for that at-large bid going into the last ranking. You don't think so?
No, because BYU's best win is SMU, understandably so, but SMU doesn't have a win over a ranked opponent all year. And obviously,
Kansas State was one of our better wins, and that was also a great win for them.
No,
right?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
They have a better resume than most of the teams
CFP.
in the playoff.
I don't want to talk CFP committee because I really do just want to have blind faith. Like, we just got to beat Iowa State. But if you look at it from resume standpoint, we beat Kansas State, BYU, Iowa State over the course of 4 weeks. That's remarkable. We own this conference now.
No, we do. We do.
So they give us the mulligan over Cincinnati. We're a one-loss team, just like, Boise
but Boise's
State.
one loss is a 3-point loss to Oregon.
But you got to understand this, right? And I know the committee won't understand that context, but Oregon had a slow start this year. They were not the same team.
You think they were weren't they ranked like 6th or 7th at that point?
But remember, rankings are just,
preseason
bias.
I know.
But Oregon was not playing good ball in the first 4 weeks of football. They were adjusting. They had some adjustment periods. Oregon today playing Boise State, that's not the final score. You really think it's a 3-point game?
No, I don't.
Exactly.
And that's a pretty good point. And I think narratives have hurt this team a lot this year, just in a national perspective, right? We went into that Kansas State game and they were ranked 16th, and we weren't even ranked at that time,
yeah,
right?
And we were 9-point underdogs.
We were 9-point underdogs, all because I don't know if people actually watched the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like, I think if people sat down and watched the teams play and watched how every single team beat up on each other this year.
They're biased. They watched the big
They
primetime
watch LSU.
Big Noon Saturday. They watch whatever games on CFB Fox after that, and then they go to ABC, ESPN, and watch the SEC game. It's the same schedule every single Saturday, and all the committee has done is fall victim to being a consumer to that same primetime schedule. But you know me, right? I'm watching each game.
Yeah.
You're telling me right now, in my opinion, if there was a Big 12 and Big 10 matchup, the Big 12 would beat more Big 10 schools than the Big 10 would beat Big 12 schools, in my honest opinion. The Big 12
and ACC. I think I just think
ACC,
the Big 12 is better. I think the Big 12 is better than the ACC.
Of course,
but no one. But if you talk to someone who didn't watch the Big 12 this year, they're going to tell you you're ridiculous. No, Big 12's terrible. Well, guess what? A former Big 12 team's about to win the SEC.
Exactly, but that's kind of the beauty in it. Like, there's going to be so much bias, but in our honest opinion, we both agree that Big 12 will match up better against the ACC if those teams played each other like if it was basketball.
Yeah.
And the Big 12 would also match up better against the Big 10 if they'd beat each other like if it was basketball. The Big 12 is in the category of the SEC. Whether you like to appreciate it or not, it's just the truth. Because the SEC is well balanced because of the transfer portal, and it's the same thing with the Big 12. These pipeline states, it shows you guys how dominant these conferences are. Our pipeline states of California and Texas is obviously going to match the pipeline states of the Southeast where the SEC goes. Guys,
and we also have Florida with UCF.
Yeah, we also have Florida as well. We're also in the SEC.
So what base are we not covering?
Exactly. So it boils down to these pipeline states, and we have prime real estate of these guys. That's why we've had such a competitive conference. That's why the best team out of our conference is 2 loss. Same thing with the SEC. Texas is lucky that they had an easy schedule. Honestly, they lost their one important game and they got blown out.
Yeah.
ASU hasn't gotten blown out at all this season. They've been in their games, winnable games, but it just showed the competitive nature of our conference devalued us on a national stage because we just continue to beat each other up.
Yeah, and you look, even the teams that weren't bowl eligible, Kansas. Think Kansas is a tough out?
Kansas beats anyone in the Big 10 except for Oregon and Ohio State.
Anyone is crazy, but they beat
Indiana.
They beat the
Kansas.
Probably Indiana. Yes. Okay.
So after Kansas just went 3-0 over
I get that,
all the ranked opponents,
I get that. But
Indiana, you're You're joking me.
I think Kansas is really good, but they do have issues,
and
right?
the fact that we're having an argument of the third best team in the Big Ten potentially
this isn't
losing,
even an argument. This isn't even an argument.
You know they would lose, bro. You
no,
know they would.
I don't.
So
I
you're
think
telling me
Indiana
and Penn State beat Kansas handily?
Certainly Penn State, and I would bet my if you gave me, say you gave me $500, and you're like,
I'm putting
go,
on Kansas.
you're like, go put your money on any game. The last team I'd be putting my money on is Kansas because they're so inconsistent.
I know,
year.
but I actually like profited off of Kansas.
Did you really?
Yeah, I know this team, bro.
Okay.
I called it in our Instagram too. I was like, when we were doing the projected standings, Nathan would be like, Iowa State's trash. And I'm like, yeah, I know they're gonna lose to Kansas, and so is BYU, and even Colorado should be a little worried. And then that all happened. And look, we're just picking one team, right? Baylor.
Baylor! What a way to end your season.
In
man.
my opinion, Baylor and Indiana, that's a great game right there. I actually think Baylor could sneak one out there, right there. So what's
TCU? Red Raiders?
TCU would run through Penn State.
Kansas State was ranked pretty much the whole freaking year.
Oh, Kansas State beating both of those schools. We already know that. But TCU would run through Penn State. I'm telling you right now. There's no dominance in There's no dominance in the Big Ten like that anymore. It's just Michigan State's terrible. They used to be a good squad, right? Nebraska fell off. Wisconsin used to be an amazing squad.
With Russell Wilson.
There's still a great defensive line and all. Shout out to those guys. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, like your bottom half of your conference should represent you as a whole just as much as your upper half of your conference. And guys, like, in my honest opinion, Oklahoma State is going to win a few games in the ACC and in the Big Ten. Arizona is going to win a game or two in the ACC or in the Big Ten. Guys, you have to boil it down to pipeline states. And we have the recruiting tunnel coming from Texas, California, and some footprints in Florida. And that's why the SEC has been good year in and year out. And yes, you guys can talk about the Big Ten because they're the Big Ten. They have Ohio State and Oregon. I understand that. But you guys don't have the pipeline states in your territory like we do. And in terms of who's beat each other up this season, SEC beat each other up, and the Big 12 beat each other up. Big 10 didn't beat each other up. Indiana shouldn't be in the conversation if it was a competitive conference. They wouldn't come out of the Big 12 with one loss. Tell me that.
They wouldn't. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Because I think Big 12, the teams played each other, right?
Yeah.
SEC, they're scared to play each other. That's why they only have 8 conference games.
Yeah,
the Big 12,
the Big
12 because played each other, man.
They know, like, you know what? We're all in the same pipeline states. Like, guys, with the transfer portal, with the NIL, it's probably going to be a little scary in the SEC. I'm sure they probably their ego didn't want to say that.
It's why Saban quit.
Well, Saban quit because the buy-in was different. It wasn't about culture anymore, which I'll give him that.
That's what he's saying publicly. I'm sure there's a couple reasons why.
No, it's exactly what happened, bro.
So?
It was him and his wife told him, he said it. He's like, yeah, like Terry told me, these kids don't even want to do it for the football anymore. They're just doing it for the security, for the assurances. But that's not why we do this. We do this for the football. We invite their families into our home, cook for them, because we want to make another family. We want to build onto our family. Yeah. And that's why he quit.
I feel that. I actually think, I don't know. We actually haven't talked about this a lot. I don't know how you feel about Dion. I think Dion's actually doing a pretty good job of doing what you just described there with the Buffaloes, which is why I was sure that he was going to move up with Shadur. But I don't think that anymore. I really do. I do think I've just been listening to a lot of stuff, and obviously he's always in the media, and just listening to the way he interacts with the recruits. And you saw him walk out with that kid who didn't have his parents there, or he didn't have parents.
Exactly.
I don't remember the specifics, but he's walking out there, and it really felt like, he loves these guys. And when he got there, he cut half the freaking team. So these are all Prime's guys.
From his guys. He brought him from Jacksonville State.
He brought him
Jackson State.
Brought him from Jackson State. I do like what Prime has done for the Buffaloes. And honestly, it's better for the Big 12 when the Buffaloes are good. a lot of people are probably not going to like to hear that. But as an ASU fan,
You're just a hater if you don't like to hear that. In my
yeah,
opinion.
I'm rooting for the Buffaloes. I'm
rooting
rooting
for
for the Big 12 to be a competitive
And
conference
let
that
me add
people buy into.
let me add another narrative. Ready?
Okay, let's hear it.
Lincoln Riley wants to leave or potentially might have to leave USC. UCF is his number 1 spot. So look at this. College football is finally admitting their faults. We need to have buy-in approach, because if we don't have a buy-in approach anymore, we're screwed. You can't have the best talent. You have to have a buy-in approach.
And you can't just bring in some flashy coach and expect it to work.
100% that, and flashy players, of course. So the buy-in approach has never been more real. With the whole NIL, yeah, of course, there's so many money and shiny object syndrome to distract us from what's really going on. But your best teams are going to be the teams that have a culture, an identity, and a buy-in. And we've seen that. We've seen that from our best coaches this year. You know, Dan Lanning has everyone bought in. Kenny Dillingham has everyone bought in. Coach Campbell with Iowa State, he had his team bought in. The SMU coach, the Indiana coach with Signetti, buy-in approach. It is no longer about talent anymore. These teams that have had talent back in the day, it's not working like they wish it would. And so at the end of the day, I think I've made my point.
Yeah.
Big 12 is a lot more comparable to the SEC than the Big 10 is. This year, you know, things can change. I think the Big 10 will get its rep back next year, because I know teams like Washington will grow back.
Washington's going to come back.
UCLA is going to go back. USC is going to go back.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit on USC, but I agree with the rest of them.
Potentially, yeah, because they are losing a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But the Nebraska is going to come back into the picture. Like, they'll be a lot more legit. And then Wisconsin is going to stick it out with Fickle, right? Like, these teams are going to get back into the mix, and the Big 10 will be relevant again. But per this year, you can't tell me that Indiana and Penn State, they're not going to be one-loss teams in the SEC or in the Big 12. It's just
the ACC. They probably would be, but
yeah. But again, ACC is the worst P4 conference.
It is
in football.
It really
and
is.
Potentially in basketball. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
Guys,
Big 12's had some pretty bad losses
in basketball. No, we're nice, bro. Dude, we have Houston, Baylor, Iowa State.
I get that, but Kansas has already lost. U of A.
Yeah, they're still top 5 though.
It takes they're going to be top 5 and for
all
probably
year.
most of the season,
Yeah.
regardless.
Same
of
thing
what
with
they
Iowa
do.
State. Iowa State just beat Marquette. They annihilated them. They're going to be top 5 all year.
A Suns legend
Houston.
Oso came from Marquette.
Yeah.
Also,
Houston's going to be top 10 all year.
Yeah.
We got the most guys represented.
Hey, ASU's coming for the top 25 ranking.
Yeah, because Cincinnati's already ranked. Look, we don't got to talk basketball yet.
Yeah, we'll get into that once the season's a little farther along.
The beauty in it is it will all work out if it was meant to be that way. And if we do end up playing as the 12 seed and Boise State does assume that bye, I'm not going to be upset, because you take what you're given and you give yourself reasons to play. Us going into a hostile atmosphere, potentially playing Notre Dame or Tennessee, I'm not shivering at all, man, because I want to play that game, get that confidence under our belt. So then when we do go to a neutral site on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, we're telling you can't mess with us, because we just beat these teams. We're undefeated since Cincy, and we didn't even have Levitin, man. You can't stop us.
We should be undefeated since losing to an 8-win team.
An 8-win team. That was our first Big 12 game, and it was our first away
with a red
game.
shirt freshman quarterback.
It was our first Big 12 away game as well.
Yep.
That was a beautiful game. Dude, and these guys were young as well. They weren't developed yet. Tyson was barely developing into himself.
He really grew throughout this season. He's a redshirt sophomore, right?
Yeah.
Because he had a medical redshirt his first year, or
he played his freshman year at Colorado, took the red shirt, last year, and then to redshirt sophomore. But like I said,
he's really grown.
I'm not going to say I like the committee. I'm not going to say I hate the committee.
Okay.
Just let them be.
Okay.
Let the college football realm handle its business. We have our takes. They're going to have their takes. That's the beauty in this entire sports world. Yeah, because
those people would listen to this podcast and they'd be like, Big 12's better than the SC or ACC. They'd be like, are you kidding me?
I know, but the coaches would agree with us. They would.
The ACC coaches or the Big 12?
I guarantee.
I think the Big 12 commissioner, that
guarantee-
dude rides for his teams. He certainly probably believes that.
Cam Ward has been very complimentary of ACC play, but let's be real here. Cam Ward, talking to Shedeur Sanders, would say, yeah, it'd probably be a little harder to play in the Big 12.
Yeah, more competitive for sure.
Yep, and that is why SMU represented, because SMU is a Big 12 school, in my opinion. They should be in the Big 12, but...
You think so?
Yeah, I do think we should assume them, but we already have that, that market in Dallas-Fort Worth with TCU, so we didn't want to do that. But I do think SMU deserved to be a Big 12 team over a guy like Cincinnati. Like Cincinnati should have won ACC. But, like, I love you guys all in the Big 12. Like, no hate to anyone, but truth of the matter is the person representing the Atlantic Coast Conference is in Dallas. They're not on the Atlantic Ocean, all right? Clemson's not beating SMU. They're not.
And Oregon's going to represent the Big Ten, which is more of a Midwestern conference, which is so it's so like fun, but also kind of weird at the same time, right? Pac-12 is kind of representing
what would
super
the Big
well.
Ten be if Ohio State wasn't in it?
The Big Ten, it would still have Oregon. It would still be a solid. It would still be a solid conference. I mean, it would certainly be weaker.
Less entertaining, and
that'd be like saying, what would the Big 12 this season? Actually, the Big 12 this season.
Lucas Oil Stadium tickets are $30.
Yeah, okay, because no one.
But if Ohio State was in that bit, damn well those are going to be $300, $400 tickets. So there's so many like brand bias. People are talking like oh, the logo on your jersey, but go down to the roots of it. We've added name, image, and likeliness.
Likeliness.
Yeah, likeness. But we've added that component that has amplified the importance of recruiting. So when you recruit, you're going to have a buy into your culture, or you're just recruiting a bunch of stars who are not going to do anything. And the beauty in it is we've seen teams fail. UCF paid $400,000 to KJ Jefferson because the coach wanted an SEC quarterback. Fail. Teams like Oklahoma State, stuck in their ways, trying to go and stick it out with Alan Bowman, failed. Utah stuck in their ways, failed. There's no buy-in component with those teams. They were just trying
Utah's a little unfair.
I'll give you that. Utah is unfair, but at the end of the day...
I actually think...
At the end of the day, Whittingham did that to himself.
No, I get that, but their defense played really good. Like, I saw their defense was bought in, and there were certain components of that offense I really liked.
Because that's their culture. They definitely will have a bought-in defense every year.
So I think it's a little unfair to say Utah, but I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get back Iowa State, ASU. Tell me how you think this game is going to go, and then who's going to win.
I actually don't want to say who's going to win anymore. I'm done jinxing stuff.
Okay. Even though you've been pretty much right all year except for Texas Tech?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. Isn't that? I was like, wow. And that was a winnable game, too, man.
I know it was.
We went down 14-0 in the first 7 minutes,
What's funny, though, is like preseason when we had that first pod, that was the one you were like the most confident about. You were like, Tech, man, first Big 12 game. What would be better than just winning the first one and just like showing the conference that we're here? I feel like
it was that one though, and Oklahoma State. I was really confident about OK State.
Yeah, you were, but we all thought that one would be way harder, and then we watched them against Arkansas, and we were like, oh,
yeah, they're
kind of beatable, but that was an SEC school, and then we saw what happened with them.
I underrated Tech because I didn't know their passing offense. I knew they had a good running back, but that's all we knew at that standpoint. Right?
Taj is good.
Yeah, like, guys, all we had was College Football 25 as a reference, and then 24/7 sports.
Well, yeah, because you were probably used to watching Pac-12. You probably weren't paying attention to Texas Tech last year.
Yeah, I was watching Pac-12 more, and
I think most of the country, Pac-12 last year was entertaining, man. I think most of the country.
It was amazing.
That was what a good swan song for the Pac-12. All right, well, if you're not going to say how it's going to go, I think I will.
All right, but let me just say this. Scadaboo's rushing for 100.
There we go.
That's a lock.
150 is a lock, I think.
150 total purpose, like rushing and receiving, is a lock.
Yeah, that is a lock. All right. I'll say, okay, Arizona State, they're going to come out. They're the home team, right? So they're going to get the ball first, I think. Because usually the away team wins the toss because it's pretty easy to win the toss. You just always do tails. It's always tails. If you're ever in a coin toss, it's always tails, or at least in Sports it is. I think they're gonna go out and they're gonna go up 7-0, regardless as if they start with
Because
the
we
ball.
started hot every
Yes,
single week.
they're going to start out 7-0. Okay, and then they're gonna start handing the ball off to Scattaboo almost every play, and it's just gonna be too much for Iowa State. It's gonna be really quickly go from 7-0 to 14-0 first quarter.
This is what I'm thinking.
This is what you're thinking. Iowa State is going to battle back, right? And then by the fourth quarter, it's going to be kind of a close game. And then they're just going to be so broken down from what Scat has done and Levitt, because Levitt, I think he's going to have to use his legs. Their pass rush is actually pretty good. And then their secondary is very solid. It's not as good as probably Kansas's, but it's a very good secondary. Levitt's going to have to use his legs, Scattaboo, and at that point, that team is going to be tired, right? I don't like the narratives around ASU this year, so I don't want to like start a narrative about Iowa State, but they didn't really they played okay this year.
Let's just say this, okay?
Okay.
We want Iowa State to beat themselves.
There we go.
We want Rocco Beck to throw his team out of the game.
We do.
Because every time Iowa State has played subpar this year, it's not because the other team is outperforming them. It's because they're beating themselves. It's because, they settle for less on, some of their 3 and outs. They settle for less on their inconsistencies on their offense. They settle for less on giving up on those rushing yards, It's who's going to beat themselves in this game. And ASU has played such clean football. I can't even visualize how this team beat themselves. They did it against Texas Tech, and ever since it hasn't happened.
They haven't, right? We've had a couple moments, but they always, here's the one thing I really love about football.
We outcoached, I would say we beat ourselves with the coaching with the Cincinnati game because that was winnable.
It was winnable.
But those first 7 minutes of the Texas Tech game, we beat ourselves.
Yeah.
Ever since this season, we haven't seen that. You're trying to run down the clock and teams are putting up garbage time points and everyone who's a college football fan is going to be like, that was a good game and all. No, it wasn't. We're running down the clock. That's the intention. Let them score. It's okay. We're just trying to run down the clock and get out of here,
Yeah, and here's what I'll say. What I love about football compared to every other sport, right? Basketball, me and you watch a lot of basketball, but there's a lot of blowouts, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of games, it's not very often. We were just at Sun Spurs. It's not very often that a team is within striking distance, right? It's a lot of blowouts. With football, almost every single game, probably 60 to 70% of games, there's a moment in the fourth quarter where if a team capitalized, they maybe could have won the game. And that is why
because it comes down to a few plays.
Yep, and that's why I'm so confident in Arizona State, because this isn't going to be a blowout. Everybody predicting Iowa State, do you really think, just sit here and think, do you really think that Iowa State is going to out-execute Arizona State in the fourth quarter? I don't think so.
If you have faith in that narrative, go ahead.
Then go for it. But and then what you're saying about Rocco, right? It's like with in basketball when teams will let James Harden chuck up 40 shots a game. If he scores 40 points on those 40 shots, he had a great game, but we'll live with that, right? And same with Becht over here, right? If he goes out there and he throws like what he did against Kansas, 383 yards
in the Kansas game
loss.
And the Kansas game is crazy, right? The best DB core, Jalen Noel, goes for 167. Jaden Higgins goes for 88 yards, right?
Yeah.
But there's no rushing offense. They're a one-dimensional offense.
Yep.
Kansas was fine with it. You know why? Because they were up. They had 31 points in the first half.
Yeah. And
they had 31 points in the first half.
And Iowa State scored 16 in that fourth quarter, just trying to come back. So it was not as close as it looked.
Execute. They're like, execute, Jalen, don't throw an interception. Play clean. We'll get the ball going. We'll get the ball to Devin Neal. We'll get the touch paint. Execute. And then who cares what Rocco does? Who cares what those two amazing receivers does? Because at the end of the day, we're going to control our own destiny because we're out executing any other team in the nation.
Yep.
And that's why Kansas did go on that winning streak, because they started to execute. They started to play clean. And that is what our main identity has been these last few weeks. It's just been that clean football. I haven't seen anything bad. What's a bad interception Sam Levitt's thrown this year?
He hasn't thrown an interception since what game was that?
And like they're tipped balls.
Well, no. But I think he's one of the best. Well, obviously he's one of the best Power 4 quarterbacks at not throwing interceptions. Kansas? Did he throw an interception against Kansas?
And that was a tipped ball.
Yes, he did. Wasn't it in the first half?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think Kansas was actually his last interception.
Really?
He didn't throw one against Utah, right?
Just press him. Go to his game log.
Let's look. Levitt. He hasn't thrown.
I think he threw one against BYU as a tipped pass as well.
Oh, yeah. He did throw one against BYU. But before then, he threw one against Utah. So he had a stretch of 4 straight games.
Utah was a tipped pass as well.
Yeah, same with Kansas. That? Yeah. And then Tech. Texas State. Texas State, wasn't it on that?
That was the Marqueston overthrow. That was the one interception that I'd blame Levitt. Yep. The Texas Tech one, you got smacked by Cade Briggs missing his block. He's our backup right guard. The Kansas,
I remember that one.
Kansas,
that one was...
BYU, and Utah all tipped passes. Rocco Becht, he's not. His interceptions aren't from tipped passes. They're actually like
they're like Jalen Daniels interceptions.
Yeah, I misread it. Let's see what he's had.
And what
he's 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's had an interception in every other game this year, basically. And he had 2 against UCF, and I like our defense compared to UCF's defense as well.
Let's look at what is ASU ranked in terms of turnover percentage in the country? Because it has to be pretty high, 11th, okay? We're the 11th ranked. And then you say, look at all those tipped pass interceptions by Levitt. If those guys just catch their balls, they're number 1 in the country.
Scat takes care of the ball. The
UNLV Rebels are up there. That UNLV defense plays hard, man. Yeah. That's a team that I don't want to play in the playoff for sure. But yeah, let's, we've been going for 45 minutes. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah. So all in all, Brian Ward is going to understand the agenda. It's like, let's stop the run. We're not going to let Sama do anything. Hanson's not going to do anything. They're not that talented of runners. They're actually bottom half Big 12 runners. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not in the conversation. They're not draft picks. Like, we've played a lot more talented running backs this year, man.
Yeah,
guys,
no, certainly.
Let's be real here.
This,
we played some.
This is actually a break.
This is a
for
break.
The Sun Devils.
That's why I'm kind of glad.
I guess U of A was also a break, but
even then, we're playing T-Mac. He's a freaking top 5 pick.
Yeah.
It was still that. What's the threat here? It's like the threat is the power of friendship for Iowa State, right?
It's like the Nova Knicks out here.
Yeah, it's like you guys got the power of friendship. I appreciate that and all, but when we put
10-win team,
I love that, man. But like, we're gonna put pressure on your quarterback. Like, we're gonna make sure, okay, your quarterback's gonna have to be the reason you get out of this stadium. And Rocco Becht single-handedly won the UCF game. I'll give you that. He got them out of that stadium, but that was at a moment when UCF was starting Ja'Cory Brown, who he wasn't even their starter when we played them. He was their QB3. We played them with their QB4. But that's besides the point. They had so much disorientation as a football program, and they still were going to end up beating Iowa State until they just gave up the lead last minute.
Yep.
At the end of the day, Rocco hasn't done anything superhero. For me, I'm not going to say the same thing for Sam Levitt as well. He's not necessarily a superhero. I mean, he's balled out in a few games, like Oklahoma State. He's balled out. Balled out against Kansas State. Yeah.
He's efficient, though.
But yeah, exactly. His superhero trait is efficiency, is playing clean, is executing, understanding his game plan that Arroyo gives him.
Is it fair to say he's the most efficient Power 4 quarterback this year?
Yeah, because he's the freshman. Fair? He's the freshman of the year in the Big 12. He's the freshman of the year. And then you can't
in the whole country. He's by college PFF. He's the highest rated freshman in the country at any position.
Yeah, and Will Howard played efficient ball, still lost to Michigan.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel probably has been playing the most efficient ball, but they're the number 1 team in the country, and he's not NFL talent or anything. He's just playing in his system perfectly.
As Oregon quarterbacks typically do, except for Bo Nix and Justin Herbert.
Well, Bo Nix is, in my opinion, playing into the Sean Payton system. Like, you put him on any other NFL team. It is okay.
That's half of what being an NFL quarterback
is. Exactly. It is exactly. But that is exactly the case with Sam Levitt. Half of it is playing into
Marcus
the
Arroyo.
system, him and Royal being best friends, and the other half of he actually has intangibles.
He does. He really does.
We've seen him get popped in the face, helmet off, standing, struggling to even walk off the field, limp off the field.
And he comes back.
Dude, this kid is pretty resilient.
If he could have played in the Cincinnati game, he would have.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
But he
I
just
love that I underrated this kid because that's just the beauty of college football. There's so many question marks with these young guys, and this kid did not look like that at Michigan State, but he didn't have any film either. So it's like you just trust the coaches, and he bought into the coaches. They trust him now. Guys, we are all in on our playbook, all into the scheme, to the identity. Can't wait to see what Brian Ward does to Rocco Becht. I know they're not going to run it all over for us. There's no way we give up 100 rushing yards to a single runner.
Yep.
Maybe to combined rushing.
They probably will.
Yeah,
but
that happens. But if we contain Rocco Becht, we contain the running back. And what I mean by containing Rocco Becht, I mean by containing his legs. Like, you can let him throw it on us, right? Like
we encourage him to throw it on us because Iowa
There's going to be
State's
one or two missed reads where he's going to throw it to Zay, throw it to Shamari, throw it to Ghost, and that's us. That puts us on the right field position, and then we're up 2 possessions, 3 possessions, and then we're just running out the clock.
Yeah, and Iowa State, their rushing game is not explosive. So if they can go out and have an explosive rushing day, that's bad news for Arizona State. You account that Becht is going to make some pretty incredible throws, but you also account he's going to make some big mistakes, handle their rushing game, and Arizona State is going to coast to a victory, or that's what I believe.
Guys, this is actually the worst rushing offense we've played all year.
You think so?
Low key.
It might be. Big 12 is the running back conference, and all of those mock drafts not having any Big 12 runners going in the first
because we played Taj Brooks,
rounds
Devin Neal, Micah Bernard, Corey Kiner, Ollie Gordon, RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens, and Dylan Edwards, LJ Martin in a BYU running team.
Yep.
And then U of A was null because they were the
worst team we played.
I think Oklahoma State beats U of A this year. So, yeah, dude, this is
the worst one besides.
And there's no ego. There's no, cockiness. This is just the cold hard facts. There's no karma gonna come and bite us. This actually is a less producing rushing offense than we've played all year. That is a fact.
That is a fact. It's a fact.
So I love saying that, right? I love those facts. I love it because it just means all the pieces are adding up. Let's just stay humble. Let's execute this Saturday.
And they should be moving on to the college football playoffs. All right.
And then cross the fingers that we get a bye week.
Yeah. UNLV, go out and do your thing. All right. Trav, it's been awesome.
If we do win by 2 or 3 possessions, though, have faith in the committee.
That they know that they do the right thing.
They sneak by UNLV.
And then that's twice that they'll have sneaked by UNLV.
Sneak by and ASU is just...
You'll look at all of their decent talent.
I think
barely
nationally
lost
they would fall behind us too. The national coverage would be ASU deserves that.
Yeah, because you look at, what was it? Was it San Jose State? They barely won that one, barely won the first UNLV. Those are the only 2 conference opponents that they played that were pretty good. I mean, UNLV I think is very good, but San Jose State is just okay. So
and the G5 is 11-80 against Power 4 teams.
Yep.
I love that stat.
It
just shows you guys no, it's a different league. Put Boise State in the Big 12, they're not going to have 1 loss. Agree?
I agree. And I think that's a perfect place to end off the podcast, man.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
Hey, Forks Up, as always, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
What a regular season. Thank you guys so much for watching all our content as well.
I
was going to text Strider, yo, regular season's over.
Dude,
this isn't promised. Postseason preview, postseason, anything. This was not promised. This show was not promised to us in August or in June. So
it's awesome making
shout
it.
out.
Yes,
shout out, Kenny.
Thank you, guys.